Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're looking at a body cam incident involving a police officer and a bicyclist after a serious collision that immediately raises questions about distracted driving and officer accountability. According to the footage, the bicyclist claims that a police officer struck him head-on. Within seconds of the crash, the rider accuses the officer of looking at his phone while driving. The officer responds that he had received a text from another officer. What's especially interesting about this case is that because of the potential conflict of interest, another law enforcement agency was brought in to investigate. The officer was reportedly given both a breathalyzer and a drug test as standard procedure, while the cyclist escaped with injuries but appears to have suffered significant damage to his bicycle. As always, we'll break down what happened, examine both sides of the interaction, and discuss the legal and practical issues involved.
Whoa, whoa! Ah! You mother... Why the fuck are you looking at your phone, officer?
I got a text from a fucking another officer here. Give me a second.
You motherfucker. Oh. 396.
The first thing we hear is chaos. Whoa, whoa. Then the cyclist immediately becomes angry and confronts the officer. You Why the F? Are you looking at your phone, officer? This reaction tells us several things. First, the cyclist appears shocked and emotional, which would be expected after a sudden collision. Second, his first accusation isn't about speeding or reckless driving. It's specifically about the officer being distracted by a phone. In many traffic investigations, spontaneous statements made immediately after an event can become important evidence because they occur before people have had much time to think through their responses. However, it's also important to remember that an accusation alone doesn't prove what happened. The officer responds, I got a text from another officer. Give me a second. This is one of the most significant moments in the footage. Instead of denying that he looked at his phone, he appears to acknowledge receiving a text message. The big question becomes, was the officer actively reading or responding to the text while driving? Or did the cyclist simply see the officer glance at his phone after the collision? Many police departments have policies restricting mobile device use while operating patrol vehicles except under certain emergency circumstances. Even if a communication comes from another officer, distracted driving can still become an issue depending on department policy and state law. The video then explains that this cop was allegedly on his phone, and seconds later, everything went wrong. Notice the use of the word allegedly. That's an important distinction. The narrator is presenting a claim rather than a proven fact. Good body cam analysis separates allegations from verified evidence. Questions investigators would ask include, was the officer's phone in use? Were text records reviewed? Did dashcam footage exist? Were there witnesses? Did vehicle data support the timeline? These pieces of evidence help establish exactly what happened. According to the narration, the bicyclist says he was struck head-on. A head-on collision between a patrol vehicle and a bicycle can produce serious injuries. Fortunately, according to the transcript, the rider survived. The bicycle, however, appears to have sustained major damage. The cyclist says, I'm here on AF.T and my frame's cracked. For cyclists, frame damage often means the bicycle is beyond economical repair. Beyond property damage, these crashes can leave lasting physical and emotional effects. One of the most important parts of this case is what happened afterward. The transcript states that because of a conflict of interest, state police took over the investigation. This is standard practice in many jurisdictions. When an officer is involved in a collision, having an outside agency investigate can improve public confidence and reduce concerns about bias. The transcript also states that the officer underwent a breathalyzer test, drug testing. These are common investigative steps after serious crashes involving law enforcement personnel. Importantly, the transcript doesn't indicate the results of those tests. This incident raises broader questions. Should police officers be held to the same distracted driving standards as everyone else? Most people would argue yes. At the same time, police work involves constant communication through radios, computers, and emergency notifications. The challenge is balancing operational needs with public safety. Technology can be both a tool and a distraction. Whether someone drives a patrol car, a delivery truck, or a personal vehicle, Taking attention away from the road can have serious consequences. Here's what we know from the transcript. The cyclist accused the officer of looking at his phone. The officer acknowledged receiving a text. A collision occurred. The cyclist was injured but survived. State police investigated because of a conflict of interest. The officer underwent standard impairment testing. Here's what we don't know. Who was legally at fault? Whether the officer violated department policy. Whether the phone directly caused the collision. What the final investigation concluded. Whether any charges or disciplinary action resulted. Separating facts from assumptions is one of the most important parts of analyzing bodycam footage responsibly. This bodycam footage captures the aftermath of a crash that could have ended much worse. A cyclist accuses an officer of distracted driving. An officer acknowledges receiving a text. An outside agency investigates. And many questions remain unanswered based on the footage alone. Whether this was a brief lapse in attention or a preventable mistake that should have never happened is ultimately a matter for investigators and the evidence they gather. What this incident reminds us is that distracted driving can affect anyone, regardless of profession. For both law enforcement officers and civilians, maintaining attention behind the wheel can make the difference between a routine trip and a life-changing accident. This case isn't just about one crash. It's about accountability. It's about transparency. And it's about making sure investigations follow the evidence rather than assumptions. What do you think? Was this simply an unfortunate accident, or does the officer's statement raise larger concerns about distracted driving? Leave your thoughts below, but remember that based on the available transcript, some important facts remain unconfirmed and the final conclusions depend on the official investigation.